Power Slap does an amazing job. I have so much more fun doing Power Slap than MMA. It's not even funny.
You have a tendency to gravitate to male-dominated spaces.
100%, yes. I'm the type of person that needs a challenge. Like, for women's jobs, like sitting behind a desk or like, you know, the things like that are for females, it just doesn't like excite me to want to do.
Right.
You know, like I need the adrenaline to like.
If somebody tells you that you can't do something.
Oh, 100% I'm doing it.
You're doing it?
Oh, yeah. As a coach, you know, obviously my goal is to be a good role model.
Yeah.
And as a woman, coaching girls in a sport that I competed in.
You just gave me chills.
That I competed in as a young girl.
Right.
But I competed against boys.
Yeah.
You know, like I definitely take the role model position very seriously because I do coach.
Jackie Cataline.
Yes.
Is that how you pronounce your name?
Cataline.
Cataline.
Yes.
Okay, Jackie Cataline.
Yeah.
So before there was slap fighting, before there was MMA, there was Jackie Cataline.
Yes.
And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about what has created this crazy, badass, fierce woman that you are today.
Okay. Well, there's actually a lot that goes into it. I am one of 8 kids.
8?
Yes. So
Wow.
I have 5 brothers and 2 sisters. Both of my parents coached high school wrestling, and all 5 of my brothers wrestled. So I was a tomboy growing up. Obviously, I have 5 brothers. So I got into wrestling when I was 12.
So there's 5 boys and 3 girls?
Yes.
Okay.
And my other sisters are very girly. So, but yeah, so I got into wrestling when I was 12, obviously, because all of my brothers wrestled, my parents coached. And that kind of just kick-started the badassness, I guess. But yeah, it's, you know, I just was a tomboy.
Were your brothers hard on you, or did they take it easier on you because you were?
I think I took it hard on them.
Oh, you made them step up their game.
Yeah, I think so. We all obviously wrestled, and one of my brothers, which he's the closest in age to me, we were 1 grade apart, always around the same weight. So it was very like sibling rivalry.
Right.
Who's going to win the spot? Because when I wrestled at that time, there wasn't really any girls wrestling.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah. So I literally, when I got into high school, was the only girl at every tournament in California.
See, so, okay. Because we know now there is a specific female wrestling category.
Yes.
When you were in high school, there wasn't. So you were on the boys wrestling team.
I was.
And you were competing against boys.
Yes.
Tell me about that, because that comes with its own set of challenges.
I think just the way that I was raised, I have a very strong mom.
Nice.
So that's honestly why I am the way that I am. And I feel like it was just normal that I'm wrestling the boys because I practice with all my brothers.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was normal. But there was the high school coach that coached us all in high school was not very welcoming to have a girl on the team. And we had a like newspaper interview after like I was a little bit successful.
Right.
And he told them that, you know, he didn't want me on the team. And then, you know, he just was hoping like all the other girls that I would just try it out and then, you know, quit.
Yeah.
And when I didn't quit and I was like successful and started beating boys, then it kind of changed his mind.
Right.
You know, and I feel like in male dominated sports for a female, if you are successful and you can kind of show, you know, we're here for a reason, it'll change people's mind. And it's not going to change everybody's mind, and that's okay. But it definitely does change people's perspective.
You were the start of an era.
Yeah.
A little bit of devil's advocate here. Because I was in the same generation, there was no female wrestling, and there were a couple girls here and there that would compete on the wrestling team.
Yeah.
I actually did wrestling stats because my track coach
my sisters did the stats.
Yeah, I did the stat because my track and cross country coach happened to be the wrestling coach too, and I, helped out there. So I watched a lot of wrestling. I knew a lot about wrestling.
Yeah.
But I do know that when there was a female competing, it would really, at that young, vulnerable age, dads and moms who didn't want their young boys to look bad and by getting beat by a girl. And I mean, there was all this stuff. And as a strong, powerful woman myself, young lady, I was kind of like, well, it's not your responsibility to have to cater to that. You're living your life out. You're living your journey out, and you shouldn't have to dim your shine in order for a boy to feel more secure with himself. So, but there are two sides to that, because it must be difficult to be a boy and get beat by a girl. But
said that it's a lose-lose.
It is a lose. Yes,
if you win, okay, you beat a girl, it's not that big of a deal. If you lose, like, you're never living it down, so it's not really, and I get that side of it. So,
which is why they needed to add female wrestling, because girls competing against other girls, we eliminate that issue altogether.
100%.
So that actually is the solution, and we've come to that solution now. You are part of that process.
Yes.
Without realizing maybe at the time.
Yeah, I did not at the time, of course. I just was doing a sport that I loved to do.
Right. Looking back now, though, so when you sit here today and you look back and you think about how you kind of trailblazed and you paved this path that you didn't realize you were one of the few strong women willing to do that. How does that make you feel?
When you say it like that,
isn't that cool?
Yeah, it makes it, worth doing what I did, obviously, and making now girls high school wrestling is one of the fastest growing sports. And
is it really?
It is.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just awesome. It's cool, and I coach high school wrestling now, so I coach girls in high school.
Yeah,
I coach boys and girls, but mainly the girls. So yeah, it's definitely something that I take to heart, and it's heartfelt, and people know that I was a trailblazer for the sport.
Yeah.
I was around the sport for a very long time before I decided to retire. So, I know everybody that's anybody. And
tell me about, I want to talk a little bit about like some of the struggles that you face, because overcoming this is what has gotten you here and what makes you such a trailblazer. But when you were in high school and you were maybe even heading into college, like how was what you were doing received by like your peers and like everybody around you? Was that?
To be honest, I have a really good support system.
Yeah.
I'm really close with all of my siblings. I'm really close with my parents, and my parents traveled with me. I was lucky enough to, in high school, I was recruited to live and train at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs.
Nice.
So I did wind up moving away from my family and everybody that I'm super close to. I actually had a hard time moving there, just because I was still in high school, and I had nobody that I knew there.
Right.
But it was definitely a really good experience. Terry Steiner is an amazing coach. He's been coaching the national and Olympic teams since I can remember. So very good mentor. And just the people that you meet along this path has been really nice. But my support system is, my parents and my siblings, and they're always there. They're always in my corner. My parents traveled with me everywhere for all my wrestling stuff. So it's good to have a good support system and doing any type of sport or any type of thing, because it's really hard to do by yourself.
Yeah. You were an Olympic hopeful.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like this is your secret to blazing the trail.
Yeah.
You ignored, it sounds like, anyone outside of your close circle. You didn't even address it. I asked you, how your peers responded to you, and you were so hyper focused on your support system, your family. That's the only thing that you focused on. And I guess that would be a good piece of advice for women who feel so plagued by the pressures and the opinions of other people, is to keep that support system tight to you. It's
a natural thing to take offense or of other people's opinions. But for me, it's because it's always been something not necessarily negative, but negative
Yeah.
as a woman doing male things.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just like, okay, whatever. Like, it doesn't
Right.
bother me.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's your opinion and you can have your opinion, but it's not
Yeah.
affecting my life and you don't pay my bills. So
I love that. I can really relate to you. Growing up, I was always very muscular. I was an athlete, and I did, it did affect me probably too much when I was younger.
Yeah.
When people would like have opinions or judge me, and I
100%.
wanted to fit some mold, like some mold of what a woman was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And, we're both in kind of a similar generation where that was kind of, but it doesn't seem like you ever went through that period of your life.
Yeah. I've always been very confident. And sometimes people take it as I'm a little bit cocky. But I just feel like if I am confident in myself, it obviously shows.
Yeah.
And people see that. And, then people don't fuck with you. So.
Love that. I'm just like, I'm absorbing all of this badassery right now.
Yes.
I love it. You're Olympic hopeful. You're in the Colorado training facility with Terry.
Yeah.
Right. And you're training. Now take me on that journey. And did you make the Olympic team?
Okay. So I was 17, moved to Colorado, living on the training center grounds.
Right.
I was still in high school, so I was going to high school. Actually, me and Henry Cejudo, who is fought in the UFC and he's done all these things, we carpooled to high school together because we both were still in high school and training there. So we actually missed a lot of school because we were training, and it just wasn't. It's not, for me, it wasn't an environment where I was going to be successful, where I was going to graduate from high school, where I was going to, because everybody else is older, they're out doing whatever, have jobs, they're out partying, they're training, they're, adults. So for me, I was there, I think 3 or 4 months. And then I told my parents, like, hey, I got to come home. So I did go home and I continued to train with my parents. I think that year I wound up taking second at senior nationals.
Nice.
I actually lost to Sarah McMahon, who also fought in the UFC by a couple of points.
So by the time you were a senior, was there female wrestling?
No. I mean, they're on the freestyle stage. Yes.
Got it. Okay.
So there was already women for freestyle, but high school wrestling was still very.
Oh, so you're talking about freestyle
outside
of high school. Okay.
Yeah. So high school is different than freestyle. High school is folk style wrestling.
Got it.
Olympics is freestyle and Greco wrestling. So it's two totally different styles. And when they recruited me to come to the training center, obviously they wanted me to wrestle freestyle. If you want to be on the Olympic team, that's what you have to wrestle.
When you said nationals, I was thinking nationals in high school.
Yeah.
So
I won those also.
You won that, of course.
Yeah.
So against the boys?
So they actually... I didn't wrestle it
because that's badass.
Freshman, sophomore, or junior year because I didn't know about it. And it wasn't until me and my parents met Terry that we kind of realized that there is girls wrestling outside of high school.
Right.
So I was able to wrestle at the Fargo Nationals, and I wound up winning my very first time going, and it was me competing against girls for the first time. And obviously me competing against boys, that's hard. They're stronger. They're just bigger, know. So when I was able to transfer over and wrestle girls, I was like, oh, this is so easy. So yeah, obviously I won that. And it kind of jump started my freestyle career and my relationship with Terry and living there and all of those things. So
that is so badass.
Yeah.
Seriously. Oh my gosh. Okay, so you're right now in your world. Maybe you didn't want to stay in the Colorado training facility, but you still have Olympic dreams and hopes.
Yes.
Didn't you qualify for the Olympic trials?
I qualified for the Olympic trials 2 times.
2 times. Okay.
Yeah, so 2021 technically.
Okay.
Because of COVID, they had pushed it. So 2016 and 2020 Olympics.
Got it.
I qualified for the trials. I wound up making it to the finals 2016. And I lost in the finals.
Oh, so close.
So close. Then I lost in the semifinals of the 2021 Olympics trials. So I never made the Olympic team, but I was still able to travel, and I wrestled in the Pan American Games and, do all of these things. Everything that you could do in wrestling, I've done, except go to the Olympics.
Yeah.
So that's, for me, at the time, it was like, oh, this is the one thing, that you want to do, that you want to make.
Yeah.
But now that I look back at it with everything that I'm doing now, it's,
Yeah.
it's not the end of the world that I didn't make it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Your whole world is consumed with wrestling. Mm-hmm. What else during those times were you juggling? Or were you just like all in? Like your whole world was just literally just wrestling?
I was all in until I turned 20 and I had my first kid.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. So I actually took a 5-year break from wrestling.
Okay.
Oh God, I don't even know what year that was. 2008, I think.
Okay.
Was the last time that I had wrestled until 2013.
Oh, wow.
So I had 2 kids in that time.
Okay.
I had gotten married, kind of just started my life, and then when my son was like 3, I took him to a wrestling club because obviously wrestling is still a part of my life, whether I'm doing it or not.
Yeah.
So I took him to a club and he actually really liked it. And I was like, well, shit, I better get back in shape and like see if I still have it,
Yeah.
You take a 5-year break, that's a long time to not be competing and staying in the circuit. So I did get back in shape.
Okay.
I had gained I was 240 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
I gained a bunch of weight when I had kids.
Oh.
So I got myself back in shape, which took a little while. And my first tournament back, 2013, I went to senior nationals as my first tournament in Vegas.
Oh my gosh.
I wound up taking second. And I was like, okay, I still have it a little bit, so.
Just a little bit.
So, that kind of jump-started it a second time for me. And then I immediately was on the national team and, kind of back in the loop like I had never left. And then obviously the 2020, I lost in the semifinals and I retired. So when you retire from wrestling, you leave your shoes on the center of the mat. And I did that. And it was bittersweet, but I had already known that I was going to transition to MMA.
Okay.
So for like a whole year because of COVID,
Yeah.
they pushed the trials. I was training for MMA and not wrestling.
Okay.
So when I retired, it's sad. It's, you're walking away from a sport that you've done your entire life.
Right.
So
did anybody approach you about MMA, or was that just your like deep dream that you had without any?
it wasn't really a dream. My brother was a professional fighter.
Okay.
Before he became an electrician.
Got it.
And he had, like 20 something professional fights.
Right.
On the California circuit. And when I decided to retire from wrestling, I was, I just didn't want to wrestle anymore. Right. I just didn't have that like fire or the drive to want to do it anymore, but I still wanted to compete. And he's like, well, just try MMA, And so I went to the gym and I tried it and I was good at it. So
of course you were.
So I was like, okay, we'll try this out and see how it goes.
Yeah.
And then.
And you also decided to become an electrician.
I did. Mm-hmm.
So how did that come to be, and where was that sandwiched into this story? So
I lived in Colorado. I didn't move back from Colorado until I retired from wrestling. So 2020, I moved back to California. Mm-hmm. I was in Colorado the entire time before.
Right.
And when I moved back, I didn't want to go back to a job that I was doing before. And he's like, well, just go take the test and see if it's something that you like to do. And so I did, and I passed the test, and
now you're an electrician.
Now I'm in my 4th year as an electrician.
That's amazing. Yeah. A running trend with you is you have a tendency to gravitate to male-dominated spaces.
100%, yes.
Do you think that is, there's something in you that just wants to just dominate, like something that other women don't dominate? Is that like, is there like a piece of you?
I feel like yes, a little bit.
Yeah.
And also I feel like I'm the type of person that needs a challenge. Like women's jobs, like sitting behind a desk or like, you know, the things like that are for females, it just doesn't like excite me to want to do.
Right.
You know, like I need the adrenaline to like.
If somebody tells you that you can't do something.
Oh, 100% I'm doing it.
You're doing it?
Oh, yeah.
I remember there was one time it was an army set up at an expo or something. And I was with my friends and I was dressed all cute and I walked by and a guy said, "Hey, 20 pull-ups and you win this," whatever it was, you know? And I turned around, "Oh, you're a female. You just have to hold a pull-up position for a minute and a half."
You're
and
like,
I was
"No."
like,
You're like, I'm doing the 20 pull-ups.
And it was like that challenge because I feel like there are certain things that men typically, they look at women, they say, "Oh,
have this expectation.
A woman can't do that." And they're usually right. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Most women don't tend to want to get slapped in the face.
Right.
Most women, whereas there are more men than women that would be like, "I can do that." I can, you know? And so it makes it unique and it makes it kind of special. And it also makes women who may not want to do that look at you and go, "Wow, like she's a badass."
Yeah.
Like I want the badass part of her, but I don't necessarily want to get slapped in the face.
Right.
Which we haven't gotten to yet.
Yes.
But so tell me another like kind of piece of you in terms of something that somebody's told you that you can't do, that you put your foot down.
Well, obviously wrestling is in there. Nobody ever really told me that I couldn't fight. Just because my wrestling background was already pretty cemented.
Right.
20 years is a long time. But
and you also don't listen to the naysayers because there's probably people on the outside who are like, "Oh, she can't do this or she can't," but you're not even entertaining that.
Right.
Which is interesting.
There is definitely a lot of, with MMA and with slapping, there's a lot of negativity that comes with it. And I was very, like my Instagram page was private. Like people couldn't just follow me. I had to accept them. And when I started doing Power Slap, they were like, "No, you have to like build a brand for yourself. You have to, you know, bring fans in for us and make your account public." And doing that. And for me, I have 4 kids. I'm not trying to be this person that I'm this professional fighter and everybody recognizes me walking down the street. Right. I'm just not interested in that. And I know that it comes with it a little bit. Right. But I don't want to be famous. I just want to do what I like to do.
You may not be able to avoid that though.
I know.
It may be an unavoidable reality for you because of what you do. And it's becoming very high profile.
It's very popular right now. Yeah.
Now, I know that you still want to do the UFC.
Yes.
But you did get approached to do power slapping.
I did.
Okay. Tell me about that because that's pretty amazing.
I have 8 professional MMA fights already.
Yeah.
And I was actually messaged on Instagram from Powerslap's page.
So from Dana White himself?
I'm not sure who runs the page. Okay. Probably like Erica or Frank, his people, asking me to see if I was interested. And I had never watched it.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Seen it. Right. I didn't even know it was a thing.
Right.
Like I had no idea because I'm not on social media like that. So I'm not seeing all these reels and all of these things.
Did you go and like do your research right away?
I didn't respond right away because I was like,
what?
I don't know if this is real or, you know, what this is. So I did some research and I found out that Dana White does actually own it.
Yeah.
And that obviously piqued my interest. The UFC is where I'm trying to go. So I responded and they're like, "Hey, can you come out to Vegas tomorrow?" And I was like, "No, I have to go to work." It's like, I can't just come to Vegas.
Yeah.
They're like, "We'll pay for your day of work. Like we want to meet with you. You know, we have something for you." So I went out and I met with Erica and Frank, who is the president of Powerslap. And
when
Dana.
was this?
In February.
In February.
Yeah, end of January. I competed in February.
Okay, so this year.
This year, correct.
So Dana White, Frank, and
Erica. Yes.
Okay, that's awesome.
So I sat down and had a meeting with them and kind of just listened to what they had to say. And they were talking about the girl that I competed against the first time and that she has all these knockouts and they're having a hard time finding people for her to slap. And I kind of was just like, initially it was like, hell no, I'm not going to just stand there and let somebody slap the shit out of me. Because I fight, you know, when you fight, you can move and block and all of these things. And just standing there kind of was like, I don't know how I'm going to do with that.
So refreshing hearing you say that, because that's exactly what I would be thinking.
Yeah. So that was my initial thoughts. And then after talking with them, we were there for a little while. I took my parents, my boyfriend, and my daughter all went. Just, you know, I got to have that support system there. And I told my parents, like, hey, this is what they want me to do, and go with me and see what they have to say. Because, you know, my parents are very business savvy, and they know, you know, if it's a good thing or a bad thing. And they're always going to have my best interest in mind, rather than just taking some manager or somebody. So when we left there, the conversation was like, this is a good business move for you.
Yeah.
Whether you want to get slapped or not, it's a good foot in the door,
right,
to get to where you're trying to go.
Because you want to be MMA. Or
right.
UFC.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
So I just said, fuck it, just do it. What's the worst that's going to happen?
Right.
You know? So
right.
I competed Super Bowl weekend, was my first time doing it.
Yes.
It was 2 weeks prior. So they had that meeting with me for 2 weeks, and then I had no time to think about it or train or even do anything. Like,
you didn't even
kind of just went in there.
How do you
and
train
winged
for
it.
us? Like, because also here's another thing that's kind of crazy is you're doing this. You're one of the first people to do this.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the first of anything. There's really no technique that has been established. You are in the driver's seat of creating technique.
Right.
So people are going to watch you to create their technique.
Right.
So I don't know if it's dawning on you that you're kind of like the original slap fighting female creating these techniques.
Yeah, not really. I mean, it hasn't really dawned on me, because I'm kind of trying to like take different things from some of the guys, and they've been very helpful, because they've kind of been around for a little bit.
Like Dumpling and the crazy
the
Hawaiian.
Crazy Hawaiian, Isaiah, who just actually won the belt. Emmanuel, who had the belt. So I'm going to all the champions and getting some advice.
Watching them, yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a very interesting sport.
So you did your first slap, and that was with Sheena.
Yes.
Okay. That was crazy, because there was a lot of hype around you two.
Yeah.
Because let's just say it like it is. You two are very beautiful women.
Thank you.
And I think they probably really wanted that. I mean, marketability.
100%.
So we're still fitting in this crazy mold of we have these beautiful women and they're badasses too.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with that. Like,
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I mean, why can't we be beautiful and badass at the same time? So we are everything, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful, badass, all of that. So you and Sheena, two beautiful women who are total badasses in your own rights.
Right.
Won a million titles. You guys are just both incredible.
Yeah.
I was not expecting to see what I saw.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was. I wasn't expecting it, for sure.
I mean, that was insanity.
Yeah.
And I also was wondering how they decided who would take the first slap. And you kind of explained that to me, but go ahead and explain that again.
So they decide who goes first in the slapping by a coin toss.
Yeah.
The commission usually does the coin toss. We're not present for the coin toss. They usually do it the week of, so we know for a few days prior who wins the coin toss. And I won the coin toss for that match, obviously, and so I was able to smack first. And it was literally picture perfect, because I didn't have any expectations. I didn't know what to expect.
Right.
I kind of was just going in there and winging it, and to get the knockout in the first smack and never get smacked, like, that's perfect. Like, I would love to do that every time and never take a smack.
That was a viral moment,
100%.
In a lot of ways, on a lot of levels. I mean, we have this female, was that the first female power slapping?
That was actually the first live event
ever. First live event ever. Wow.
Yeah.
Is all this like sinking in for you?
It is now that you're saying it.
Now that you think about it,
Yeah.
you're kind of like the pioneer of, female slap fighting.
Yes.
It's becoming a very serious sport now.
It is.
People weren't taking it seriously when it first came out, but now they absolutely are.
Yeah.
You do your first slap and it is a knockout. I mean, a crazy knockout.
Yeah.
From there, then what's the hype around you? What people are now in your ear? You're getting, I'm sure.
I mean, the attention obviously went, the video went viral. It had like 500 million views. So even people that don't know that it's me, they know, oh, this girl with braids from Powerslap, like she had this crazy knockout. And it's obviously, it's a good thing. And I feel like for Powerslapping, the girls draw the numbers more. And I hate to say it, but yes, we're good looking. People want to watch it. Slapping is entertaining. And obviously we do have the power to knock each other out. So yeah, it was a really good experience for me, the whole thing.
The crazy part of Powerslapping is when they do the slow-mo. And I know they have to do that because they have to see if there was a foul. Right. And this is something I'm learning right now, which is there are fouls because it's not just a free-for-all. You can't just slap wherever, however.
Correct.
So tell me about the fouls and tell me about how they do that.
So it's definitely a thing right now. Obviously, it's so new. Everybody's still trying to learn the technique and making sure that we don't move our feet because you can't move your feet. Your feet have to stay flat.
That would make sense because then you'd have some wind up and some momentum.
So, and then also with the slap, it's required that there's 3 points of contact at the same time.
Got it.
So you can't lead with the palm. Obviously, that's gonna knock anybody out. And then also there's like a range on the face that you can hit. You can't hit too high and you can't hit too low or like too deep in the ear. So there is a target spot and, the refs are also new. Everybody's new. The rules are kind of all over the place. The judging's kind of all over the place. There's certain things that you look at that, okay, that was a good slap. And then somebody else does the exact same slap and they're called for a foul or like, it's just not consistent right now. And I get it. It's brand new. And it's something that everybody's learning. But there's definitely rules and technique and things that go into it. It's not just, well, let me just come out here and slap the shit out of somebody.
How deep do you think you are in your Powerslapping career right now?
I mean, I'm fairly new. I still foul, I feel like I'll
do you still feel that? Do you feel the fire in this right now?
I'm still going to compete and do it. I love doing it. Honestly, Powerslap does an amazing job. I have so much more fun doing Powerslap than MMA. It's not even funny. Like the atmosphere is good. The people are good. Everything is taken care of. Like, and it's not like this animosity. Like, I'm going to slap you. Okay. We're not standing in a cage for 15 minutes and punching each other and trying to choke each other out. I have a different feeling towards you prior to the fight than me and some girl standing up there and slapping each other. Like, I'll be your friend if we're slapping each other. Right. I'll talk to you before, but fight week for MMA, like I don't talk to you. I'm not like trying to be your friend. Like we're trying to take each other's heads off. Like I'm not, but for slapping it's so different. Like the atmosphere is just fun and
I'm never gonna try to take you on, so you don't have to worry about that.
But yeah, Powerslap is a lot funner of an atmosphere.
Yeah. Whereas now, I don't know, because you did your research obviously going into this sport, but Dana White, when he first took on Powerslap, he started a reality show, and that reality show was the opposite of what you just explained. It was men in a house together wanting to rip each other's heads off, and he basically said, look, this is your opportunity to slap the out of the people that you want to slap.
Honestly, the shows, they need that.
Yeah, they do.
Nobody wants to watch a show that's no drama.
People played it up.
100%. And
everyone there played it up.
And honestly, there are people that don't like each other. I mean, when you live with somebody, like sometimes you just don't get along, you don't mesh, you want to smack them.
Right.
So it's honestly, it's fun and it's good. But for me, like just competing, like we see each other for the whole week. Like when me and Sheena competed against each other, we went on Fox News together. We did all these things prior to the slap.
Really?
Yeah. So it's like,
what about after the slap?
Honestly, after the slap, she was a little bit salty, and rightfully so. I mean, you're the girl,
right? You're
knocking everybody out, and then that happens to you, and you're viral in a way that you're not used to, and I get it. But I actually reached out to her, and a lot of people don't know this. I reached out to her to see like if she was okay, legitimately, because it's not ever my intention to harm somebody. Right. Yes, we sign a contract. We know that's what we're going to do, but I don't want you to be hurt.
Right. Was she okay?
She was a bitch, to be honest.
Oh, man.
And so for me, it was like, okay, well then,
Yeah.
I'm sorry that happened to you, and that's the way that you feel. And obviously we can't be friends. And I'm going to do the same thing the next time that we go against each other, So but I'm not usually like that unless you give me a reason to be like that. Yeah. Like the girl I just competed against, me and her were out at the bar afterwards, hanging out, like, there should be no animosity when you sign a contract, and that's what we're supposed to be doing to each other.
You know what's funny? I'm going to draw like a really funny parallel to bodybuilding. So in bodybuilding, we go on stage in heels and in bikinis, and like people talk like to each other like they're going into a fight, like they're actually going into like a fight ring, you know what I mean? And the funny thing for me is always like, dude, you're not going to go into like a match and like knock each other out. Like it's a bodybuilding stage. We're in heels, we're in suits, like calm down, right? But
sorry, I didn't know that was like an actual thing.
But people do get very like, especially with social media, you have guys and girls, they treat it like they're going into, but in this case, was the case. Yeah. I mean, so when you actually are about to, we call it like crush dreams. Like, no, we're not crushing dreams. We're like going on stage in heels and a bikini, but we really are. I mean, legitimately crushing serious dreams. I mean, when you produce something that goes viral, 500 million views, that has to be such a huge shot to the ego.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's your responsibility to feel bad for, because you're on your journey. It's kind of like the same thing that you went through in high school. It's like, it's not your responsibility to help the egos of the boys.
And I have empathy for her and the way that she feels. Yeah. But like I said,
but you're doing your thing.
We're both doing it.
Yeah.
And we know that could be the outcome.
Like if she knocked you out, it would have been the same thing the other 100%. Way. So we're talking about, one of you it was inevitable that someone was going to get knocked out. You know what I mean? I have a question. Do you think that if the coin went the other way, do you think that you would have eaten her slap?
Yeah.
I like that.
100%. I would have eaten her slap. And I know that there's going to be a rematch in the future. This Abu Dhabi trip that we just had for Powerslap 9 was actually supposed to be a rematch between me and her, and she pulled out.
So you two are pretty badass because you cover all the bases: the beauty, the badass, the willingness to do this, and just that fierceness. It's like all the things that women truly want to embody in this day and age, and we're becoming more empowered to do so. Yeah, and you're in this like epic wave of just pioneering this like next era of just like badass women. Yeah. Isn't that cool?
It is super cool.
Think about it.
It's super cool.
I mean, have you thought about, the young women that you're potentially inspiring?
Oh, 100%. As a coach.
Right.
Obviously my goal is to be a good role model. Yeah. And as a woman, coaching girls in a sport that I competed in.
You just gave me chills.
That I competed in as a young girl. Right. But I competed against boys. Yeah. I definitely take...
You're like, back in my day.
Yeah, I definitely take like the role model position very seriously because I do coach. So I know that little girls and girls at wrestling tournaments come up to me and they want my autograph and, stuff like that. So it's something that's very humbling, and it's something that I definitely love. And I will never say no to somebody that comes up to me and asks for a picture or an autograph, no matter how famous I get.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we didn't really touch on that, but you're a wrestling coach.
I am.
Okay. Wrestling for high school?
High school.
High
Yes.
school? That's awesome.
Yeah.
And for full-blown female, so that's how you know that it's a very rapidly evolving
Yes.
sport in high school.
Yeah, both. So my parents coached at the high school in Eastville, Roosevelt High School, for 17 years. When they decided that they were going to step away from coaching, because it is a lot of work, me and my brother took over the program.
Oh,
So me and my brother actually coach the high school, and my son is a freshman this year at the high school. So we're actually, season is about to start, so we're very busy with wrestling right now.
wow. So how long ago did you start coaching?
This will be my third season.
Okay, and then how long ago did women's wrestling come to be?
Ooh.
Like how long have we been having female wrestling in the high school right now?
I think.
I'm wondering how far removed my generation is from this.
Well, I graduated 2006.
Okay.
No girls. I think it wasn't until like 2012
So
that it started becoming more popular.
okay,
And there's still states
when
that don't
right.
have it
I'm
sanctioned.
wondering when there was when the start of a dedicated female wrestling team
I think
began.
it's been within the last like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, it has to have been recent.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like in that beginning phase of that too.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Gosh, this is so cool.
Yeah.
I honestly think this is so neat. I think this is so great for women. I think it's so great for like what you're doing and in the whole world of just female badassery. It's amazing.
It is. It is very awesome, and I definitely enjoy it and embrace it as it comes.
Right.
Yeah.
What's right now you're living in your passion.
Right.
Right. So what do you see moving forward? Like what do you want to be tackling like in the next like 5 years?
Obviously, my main goal, competitive wise, is to go to the UFC. Yeah. Everybody knows that. Dana knows that. When I sat down and had that very first meeting with him, I told them, my goal is to go to the UFC.
It's happening.
My goal is not to be a power slapper. And yes, I may be good at it and it's fun, but my passion is wrestling and fighting. So obviously go to the UFC. God, I don't know. I have a good career. My kids are getting older, you know.
You have 4 kids. How old are they right now?
4. So the oldest is going to be 16, 13, 9, and 7. So I have a pretty good range of ages.
Of your 4 kids, boys, girls?
So the oldest is a boy, then a girl, then 2 boys.
Got it. Do they all wrestle?
They do.
Even though even your girl? Mm-hmm. Look at that.
She's actually, honestly, she's probably going to be the best of all.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she's just a little more ornery,
Oh,
you know?
okay. She takes after her mom.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so they all do sports. They all wrestle, and, you know, I have a very busy schedule. I work full time. I compete. I train. I coach the wrestling and all of their activities. So my schedule is definitely chaotic.
How do you do this?
No
this
sleep.
is crazy. No sleep. Oh my goodness. Gosh.
Yeah.
That is insanity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But I'm once my kids are older and they're gone and I'm not competing anymore, then it's like, you know,
right.
then I'm not doing anything. So I'd rather be doing it now while I have the energy and I can do it, and than, you know, to not be living this life.
Yeah.
So
I want to go back, actually. I want to rewind all the way back to your childhood. And I want to talk a little bit about your parents and your upbringing, because it sounds like they had a huge influence on you.
Oh,
and
100%.
how
All the influence.
I mean, even when I ask you what type of, what your peers thought of what you're doing, you never even address that. You're always very much focused on your parents' influence and your close, tight-knit group. So tell me a little bit more, backtrack. Tell me about your childhood, what it was like with your parents growing up and how they steered you into the path that you got.
So it was a very busy household. Obviously, there's 8 kids. My dad was in law enforcement his entire career.
Mine too.
And my mom was a media consultant.
Okay.
So they were very busy with their own schedules, and they still managed to, everybody's going to all their sporting events. We all got good grades, you know, like we just lived in a house that was very tight knit. Everybody did everything that everybody was doing.
8 kids.
Yeah. And it was my dad was in law enforcement, and like, your dad was in law enforcement, very strict. Yeah. So we didn't step one toe out of line ever. And when we did and we got caught, oh boy, we paid for it. But no, they definitely influenced my athletic career, obviously. With everything that they were doing, 8 kids, working full-time jobs, they still managed to coach wrestling. So it's definitely shaped all of us. And they have 8 kids, and usually there's one that's, well, out of 8, there's probably 2 or 3 that are fucked up. And we're all super successful. We all have really good jobs. We all graduated high school. Wow. They managed to keep us all on the straightened path. So
your mom and dad both coached wrestling?
Mm-hmm. They did.
Okay, so tell me about your mom.
Yeah.
Because she's removed. So, okay, tell me about your mom.
Okay, so my mom grew up homeless.
Oh, wow.
And very rough neighborhoods. Okay. And my dad wasn't homeless, but he grew up in a rough neighborhood as well. Okay. And they really could have went the complete opposite way. Right. And my mom was emancipated at 16 or 17. Wow. So she kind of had to be an adult right away. But she was very athletic. She was a superstar on the track and cross country team. Just this tall white lady in the middle of the ghetto running against all these super athletic people and winning. Yeah. So just the way that she was raised and growing up and having to be strong, it made her the woman that she is, and takes no bullshit. And,
I got to meet her.
Oh, you do. Yes. No excuses, no bullshit. Like, you take accountability for the actions that you do. And that's how I was raised. And that's why I am as strong as I am.
That's awesome.
But yeah, she's definitely a strong lady.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So how did they meet?
They actually went to high school together. They were not high school sweethearts. Okay. They actually got together later in life. And went to high school together. Then they were living across the street from each other while they were in different relationships. And then they wound up getting together. So very interesting story. But they've been together now like 35, my whole life. Wow. 35 years.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. So do they both come from, your mom was emancipated, but do they both come from large families? Because 8 kids is no joke.
My dad actually only has 1 sister.
Wow.
And my mom has, hers is a little bit bigger. She has 2 sisters and I think 2 brothers. The brothers we don't really communicate with, but my aunts we are in contact with. So not like super big like that, not 8 kids.
It's interesting because, you said that people can go either direction. Mm-hmm. And it sounds to me like they wanted to fill their home with a lot of love. Yeah. It's like that was a hole maybe in both of their lives and they filled the hole. Yeah. They created this beautiful, loving family of just everyone supported each other. Mm-hmm. Everyone, was there for each other. Right. That is a beautiful thing.
It is. As much as we got on each other's nerves, like we were very, we were very tight as a family.
Right, right. Well, that's a big household.
It is.
I don't know how you could
Lots of different personalities.
So you had 2 sisters.
2 sisters.
And you were the tomboy.
I was the tomboy.
What did they get into?
So they actually both did sports. Okay. My older sister did cross country and track, and then my younger sister did swimming. Got it. But just not as, wrestling was our base. Everybody did it. So it was like, they didn't do it, So the other sports, yes, they did do sports, but it was like wrestling was everything in our house. And sometimes they probably felt like, oh, wrestling again, like,
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, they did sports as well.
Yeah. Well, athletics runs in your genes.
Yes.
So everyone was an athlete, but not everybody was a wrestler.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever grapple or practice with your brothers?
Oh, all the time.
All the time?
Literally, we had mats in our garage.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I could see that.
So we literally were practicing all the time.
So your garage was just a big wrestling mat.
Yes,
that
it was.
I can imagine that.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. See, this is interesting. Your mom and dad were both wrestling coaches. Your mom is a total badass.
Yes.
And this is, I guess, if anybody wants to know how to breed a Jackie Cataline.
Right. Just talk to my parents.
This is the formula, right?
Yeah.
This is the formula. I think there's a
100%.
lot there, becoming the this strong, independent woman. I do think that a lot of it comes from someone's upbringing.
100%.
And that's why someone like you is so important to have in this space, because not everybody has parents like that.
Right.
Not everybody has the role model in close proximity.
Right.
So having a role model like you, somebody that maybe is not like reachable, but they could like look at as an example.
Yeah. And I honestly, I tell my girls that at the high school, because a lot of them, their parents don't show up to the tournaments, or they're not like my parents were at every tournament. They traveled with me everywhere. They, were that support system for me. And a lot of these kids, guys and girls, the boys and girls on the team, like their parents don't even show up. So it's like me and my brother and the other coaches that we have to be that support for them. Because obviously the goal is to make you a good human being, to be successful in life.
Right.
Not necessarily wrestling. Like, you don't have to be the best wrestler in the world, but it's something that's going to build your character to where you go and get a good job, or you don't just turn into some loser kid, So yeah.
Can you tell me about an example, because I'm sure you have many, but where you really felt like you made a difference in like a young female's life who maybe was on your team, somebody that you helped out who didn't have, another role model?
I mean, there's a lot.
I'm sure there's a lot. It's probably hard to even identify one.
There is one girl currently on our team. She just has a mom that's a partier and is not necessarily like a mom figure, and doesn't really care about her grades, and, kind of just lets her run amok. And she's been suspended and gotten in fights and just all of these things, and she wants to be on the wrestling team. So I sat down with her like I would sit down with my own kid, and like, this is what you have to do. Like, you have to do all of these things. I'm going to be checking on you. I'm going to be checking your grades. Like I'm your mom.
Wow.
And honestly, like, for me, watching my mom do it for so long, and they have such good relationships with the people that they have changed their lives, like were like shitty little kids and turned into cops, or turned into this as an adult. Like, I'm trying to follow those footsteps and like give this girl the opportunity to like, hey, yes, you may have a fucked up situation, but you don't have to turn it into that as an adult. So her in particular right now, because it's something that I'm dealing with now. But there's a lot. There's a lot like that.
Yeah. Yeah. You recognize the gravity of the position you're in, and the impact that you have.
Yeah. And obviously you want to be a good role model for these people, because they don't necessarily have it at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Jackie, you're amazing.
Thank you.
Seriously, I keep saying that, but I can't, like, I think that while we're sitting here and as we continue, I feel kind of like it's hitting you in the moment.
A little bit. Yeah.
Sometimes that's what it takes.
Yeah.
Going through the timeline of what you've done and how you've done it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we're like so in our world, we don't necessarily step outside of our world and realize what exactly we've done. And I would say you have been leaving your mark.
Yeah, I think so.
When
somebody else says it, it's like, then you start like realizing, because like you said, I'm just living in my world and doing what I'm supposed to be doing and taking after my parents. And when somebody says it and you say it all together like that, then I'm like, oh, wow, that is a lot.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is.
So thank you for saying it.
This is make your mark.
Yes.
You are making your mark. Okay. When you look back and you look at everything that you've done, tell me, how would you want somebody to describe you and having explain you leaving your mark?
I don't know. I mean, obviously I want people to think, dang, she was badass.
Yeah.
And she, accomplished a lot in male dominated things. And hopefully young girls look up to that and like, hey, I can do that too, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, that's all I really want. And I want, like, I have a daughter. I want her to feel like, hey, she can do anything in the world. And I think that's the best way to leave my mark.
I think you're doing it. I know you're doing it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for just everything that you've done and everything that you continue to do. And just, I don't have to tell you this, but don't stop.
Yeah, I don't plan on stopping anytime soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
It was amazing.
Thanks.